I kicked it off with my usual charm.
Good evening, everybody. It is Thursday, October the 18th, 2018, and this is the Mr. Video Game Show that I'm running, and my OBS is not being good, so I'm playing Slay the Spire in the background, apparently. So that's cool. I'm your host, Slacker Kite. With me today, we have, I guess, a returning person. This has been a very confusing day today so far. Everyone, give it up for Brian, aka Wonderboy.
What's up? I don't know what else to say right now because I already expressed myself through grunting, coughing, and hacking at the beginning of our show. So I guess I'll just end it with a squee.
And our usual video producer, who is not here today because she is sick, Joan, is not here. So instead, we have the ever lovely. How should we call you? Do you want to go real name, both names? Because we usually give both here.
Yeah, you know what? We'll go with both.
Okay. It is Lindsay, aka Merowyn, from the Grailstorm, which we haven't done in a while, but certainly plan to at some point game. Yay!
Hello. Up here in the frozen north, because, yeah, it's freezing today.
I was gonna ask, how frozen is it?
I think we're sitting at like 6 Celsius. We're dropping down to like -1 at night.
Oh Jesus!
Good lord.
Never mind. That's just
Yeah, it hasn't gotten that cold here, and I'm only like an hour south.
Yeah,
How?
but that's the key word. You're south. I'm also right on the lake.
This is also
Yeah,
true, and I am not off
that'll
the
do it.
lake. So, we are the Mr. Video Game Super Show, and as always, we talk about video games and various levels of capability. We kind of jumped into this one a little bit more haphazard than normally because several things just went fucking weird at the start of the show. But we've got
Me
some.
too. I'm cursed.
You're not.
I won't put that on you. Honestly, we kind of curse ourselves every week here. So
You could say the show is cursed.
now I've done that show.
So we're going to start off because it's October, and this is when video games start to actually come out, and we can actually talk about games that exist. Holy shit, I know, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so we actually have games that recently came out, and on Dead Sun Entertainment last night, we got a chance to play the Jackbox Party Pack number 5. And I have to say, it's fucking
Most of it,
charming.
at least.
Yeah, there's one game that we did get to play because it's not stream friendly, and not all of us are in the same house.
You can blame me.
Well, Hollis also isn't here, so you know.
True, but I mean he's on his way there. But
Yeah.
still, I'll take the blame for my since Allison isn't here to defend himself. I'll take the blame for being across the country from everyone else.
Well,
Hey,
there you go.
at least you're in the same country.
Hmm.
Good
Yet
point.
oddly, you're closer despite being in a different country.
Fun with geography.
Touche, salesman. Touche. But yeah, we played a bit of
Ugh.
it, and I have to say, it's good stuff so far. I love the rap battle myself. You get to actually have
Yes,
little robots rap with the things you write.
God, Madverse City is so rad, and I'm not just saying that because I won. That game, that game honestly might be my favorite Jackbox game that they've done in all of the party packs so far. Like it's close to bracketeering and it's close to the good old standard fibbage, but that thing is something else. There's just a different level of creativity that goes into that thing that just feels even more rewarding.
Yeah, I know, like, Joan didn't care for it, but at the same time, I think it's because she's bad at rapping. Just throwing that out there. Not a rap enthusiast like you and I are, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one I'm gonna have to pick up because the last Jackbox pack that I grabbed that I fell in love with was 3, and it was only because of Trivia Murder Party. So
Ooh.
I mean, Trivia Murder Party's good, and this one I actually really appreciate. I haven't played. I actually realized last night I had played the original You Don't Know Jack games on a Mac in like the late fucking 90s was the last time I'd played a You Don't Know Jack game. So seeing how
Yeah,
far You Don't Know Jack itself has evolved over the years, fucking stellar.
I mean that
yeah,
makes total sense. Like I haven't touched that thing since the age of Windows 95. So
I remember spending the hours leading up to Y2K with a couple of my girlfriends playing You Don't Know Jack on their terrible, terrible, clunky PC that by today's standards would just be unacceptable, waiting to see if the world would end.
Sadly, it
honestly,
didn't.
not a bad place. Apocalypse.
Yeah, we're actually living in a post-apocalyptic society. You don't really know this, but that's where we are right now.
Part of me knows it. At least part of me.
Speaking of post-apocalypse, Brian, I understand you've played a bit of a new game as well.
Yes. So actually, also on the stream last night, we discussed how we're going to be streaming Swery65's new game, The Missing, next week for our Halloween special. And it just so happened that that timed perfectly with me being able to get my hands on that and give it a look-see um, yesterday. Um, I played about an hour of it, and I'm just going to go ahead and assuage all doubts. It is definitely a sweary game. It
Oh,
is weird as hell.
so far you
Um,
say things that are so surprising to me that a sweary game is weird.
yes, it is. It is weird. It is impactful in its depiction of uh, violence and gore. Um, Also, the way it uses the violence and gore as a like traversal mechanic is real fun. Reminds me a lot of like some of the abilities you would get in Stubbs the Zombie, if anybody remembers that classic Xbox title.
No clue.
Um, okay, it was a really rad game. You can find stuff on YouTube about it. I don't want to wax poetic about that thing. It'll take me forever to do so. Um, anyway, so but outside of the normal like odd dialogue and just general atmosphere that you expect from a sweary game. This one carries a bit of surprising, uh, like heartwarming feeling to it. Like the very beginning of the game, like it lays out to you in a text screen at the very beginning of it that it's going to depict some things that are going to be sensitive to those that are sensitive to images of violence or mentions of like suicide. So it's just very upfront with like, hey, this is in this thing. We want to make sure that you're cool with that. If you're not cool with that, it's fine. Just we just wanted to be upfront with it. And then it goes into a different text screen that says that, like, basically, to paraphrase, this game is about uh, discovering who you are and not being afraid to be that, no matter who says not to. And in the game, you are playing a woman who is involved in a lesbian relationship. The whole point of the game is your girlfriend has disappeared on this very strange island off the coast of Maine, and you are charged with trying to find her. Um, and the fun thing about this island is that you cannot die on it. No matter what happens to you, what hazards you hit, you can't die. You can lose your limbs, you can get burned alive, but you will still be alive, and you can regenerate to your normal form
Hmm.
at will. So, like, I've seen a lot of writing about this game, like kind of talking about its handling of queer relationships and how it's like super like queer friendly in a surprising way that no one really expected to come from a sweary game, especially based off of how like Deadly Premonition treated some of its female characters in it. But so far, I am enjoying it. I can already tell that some of the platforming and puzzle stuff might get a bit tedious, depending on the length of this thing. But I'm enjoying it so far.
See, I'm surprised that I watched a review from Jim Sterling on it, and he mentioned none of the undertones of the game, which really surprises me knowing Jim Sterling.
Yeah, that surprises me too. I haven't watched his review of it, so now I'm curious to go check that out.
I mean, he definitely talked about, the gore attribute and how it's used in an interesting puzzle mechanic, but didn't really talk very much about what the game actually does. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, it does interest me a little bit, but maybe he didn't want to, play the hand of the game too hard, which would make an amount of sense, I guess.
I mean, for a sweary game, you'd never want to give away what happens in like the later acts. I mean, just looking at you take Deadly Premonition on face value, and you have no idea what's coming for you in like the last 10 to 20 hours of that game.
True that.
Yeah, so that would make sense if he didn't want to divulge that stuff. Just I'm just waiting for the turns to come in this thing.
And you
I've
know it
already
will
been
come.
chased by a giant ghost wielding a like 10 foot long box cutter, so I'm into it, you know.
Hmm. Lindsay, I understand you've also picked up a new game recently.
Not exactly new.
It's a word.
I think it was re-released back in July or August, but it's a game that is very near and dear to my heart. It's one of the first games that I've spent tens upon hours, maybe hundreds, and still haven't completed. I actually grabbed the HD remaster of Okami.
Hmm.
It's from Capcom, which I mean they're known for like Street Fighter and Monster Hunter, and but if this is I've played a lot of remastered and re-released games, and honestly this is probably the first that has stayed so true to the original release. They literally just prettied it up a bit, kept the exact same controls, everything. It's still super intuitive, absolutely gorgeous game. It's definitely one that I'm going to end up losing myself in again. I played for about 2 hours right after picking it up. It's a very tiny download, only takes about a half an hour, but totally worth picking up. I got, like I said, about 100 hours into it before my poor PS2 went MIA through multiple moves. So it's worth the $27 Canadian price tag. I'm not sure what it's selling for in the States right now, but very, very, very much worth picking up. If you've played it before and miss it, grab it again. If you've never played it, grab it. It's gorgeous. It's a there's very few games I can say are just flat out pretty and then have the gameplay and story to back it up, and this one covers both.
See, and it's a weird thing. You would think I actually played Okami. I didn't really fall that much in love with it, and I felt like there was something wrong. It's one of those games where you play it like I should love this game. This should be great. And I think I got as far as like there's like a giant mushroom dungeon that I got into, and I was just like I'm not feeling this. And I have no idea why. I genuinely couldn't tell you.
Um, I don't know, like I'm the kind of person that I need to complete things, and as you move zone to zone, the sensation of completionism is just so perfectly played out,
Mm.
in clearing out all of the corruption, and you can visually see, yes, I've completed this area, because like a lot of games you'll have, oh, complete all the missions in this area and then move on to the next, and you don't have any visual representation of that.
Right on. Well, that about
Yeah, I can.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, it's fine. we can move on. I was just going to talk about Spider-Man for a second because something that that Lynn's just said like reminded me of like that feeling of seeing like your accomplishment of clearing out an area. Like with Spider-Man, you know, I was expecting that feeling, and whenever like I completed all of the crimes that I needed to do in the section, but then the crimes still happened afterwards. Like it was just an arbitrary thing to complete. Like I ended up being duped by that feeling in a lot of ways, and that frustrated me. So I can completely understand how that sort of satisfaction informs the way that you enjoy playing that game.
Can I say much a pro about nothing? I don't know how the fuck people who stream Slay the Spire do it, because I'm having a nearly goddamn impossible time trying to talk and think about what cards I'm playing at the same time. So, uh, hi, just all of the applause to you people out there that I can actually fucking do this, because I feel like somebody's trying to, like, rumble my fucking brain right now. But anyway, the news. I feel like we've been following up with this first one for a while, and I'm kind of personally hoping that this is the last bit of it for a little while.
Well, I can tell you this much: it's probably going to be the last bit of it until sometime before the end of the year, based off of some things said during a certain AMA yesterday.
Fair enough. And yes, there was an AMA with Ian Howe, the Skybound Games CEO, and Kent Muddle, the creative director, that answered some questions over at the Reddit, The Walking Dead Game, or slash The Walking Dead Game. And it's an interesting read to go through. Uh, don't know, Brian, do you want to give us some of the highlights out of this?
Yeah, so really there were three main things that came out of this. Like, unless you really just want to dive into figuring out how much about the story and characters and, who the people at Skybound are going to let you romance in the thing. Very spoiler heavy. I will go ahead and warn anyone who wants to go check out the transcription of this AMA. Very spoiler heavy for all seasons of the Walking Dead video game series so far. That being said, the three main things that came out of this were Ian stated that while he cannot guarantee it, he is going to do everything. Him and Skybound are going to do everything within their power to finish episode 3 of the final season of the game by the end of the year and have that released by the end of the year. No timetable, no any kind of approximate date set outside of that for either episode 3 or episode 4. He also stated that him and his team are going to do their best to get as many of the people working on the game from TellTale to come in and work on finishing the season. Obviously, he does not know how many of those people he's going to be able to get based off of them trying to get other employment after the collapse of TellTale, any bitter feelings they might have towards TellTale or the fan base for the game after the uproar that resulted, the misplaced anger of a lot of fans directed towards TellTale, former TellTale devs has just been really gross. And I would not be surprised if some of those people decide to move away from that title and just move on to something completely different just to get away from that community. Also, the third major thing to come out of that would be, so not many people asked Ian or there was another person from Skybound that was on this. I can't find his name. It's like Kent Mudle, I want to say Mudle. I can't remember his position with Skybound, but he was also there answering a question from Skybound. But Ian specifically was asked by a couple of different people about the current climate around the discussion on working conditions, labor rights within the game development community, Nobody, I think, specifically asked him about unionization, but they did answer some questions regarding overworking staff, so some of the stuff is going to relate to the Rockstar situation that we'll discuss later, as well as working conditions. And his answers were like somewhat reassuring, but also kind of showed a certain vagueness that I really don't expect from someone who's worked with video games in the past. Like, I know he hasn't been at Skybound that long, and he's not really familiar with he hasn't even played the Walking Dead TellTale series at all. So he's not terribly familiar with a hands-on experience of these games. But yet, in his answer regarding work, employee care, work-life balance, that sort of thing, this is what he said. I can't speak to the working conditions of any other company. I honestly have no more knowledge than you about some of the alleged conditions at various game companies. I likely read the same news reports as you, and it's certainly been a topic of conversation in the industry. What I can say is that I've always been a huge advocate of good work-life balance. I don't believe people working 70 to 80 hours a week is sustainable or healthy. I don't do that and wouldn't expect anyone who works for me to do anything remotely like that. We haven't hired anyone yet, nor have we made any offers because we're not at the stage where we can do that. It's a long process that unfortunately can only happen in a specific order. What we have as of today is a goal to complete the game with as many of the original team as makes sense, and that's only if those people want to come back. Regarding salary information, I think you have to ask yourself if you'd come back to finish the game on a reduced salary. I'm almost certain I wouldn't, and I wouldn't expect anyone else to. Now, all of that, endearing. Exactly what you want to hear from someone that's in an executive position at a video game developer. This next line is the thing where I was like, you don't get a pass by saying this.
Right.
Back to his answer. Crunch is a very non-specific term, so that's impossible to answer. However, I can say that I would never expect or ask anyone to work what will be considered inhumane hours, so unequivocally, yes, I can ensure that. I'm sorry, but no one working within the video game industry or with a working knowledge of the video game industry does not know what crunch is. Like, that is, like, the term, like, yeah, it can be applied to many different industries, but you know what that means when someone says they're going through a crunch.
Yeah, I've certainly never worked in the video game industry, but I understand the word crunch pretty well.
Yeah, so like that was like the one red flag that jumped out to me in that answer. That maybe, like, I'm not sitting there saying that because of that, Skybound is going to force people to work, Rockstar style hours here or TellTale style hours here. But that it does show a lack of context that really does not need to be present when you're trying to reassure at least the people that were watching this AMA that do care about labor rights within the industry. Now, granted, the majority of the people here did not. The majority of the people here were just happy that someone was finishing the season. That's all they cared about. There was actually another answer regarding whenever Ian found out about the TellTale situation and how everybody had been laid off. And his answer, I'm paraphrasing here because I don't have it directly in front of me, but basically his answer was that he was shocked and saddened by everybody losing their jobs, but the first thing that came to his mind was, we are not letting this game not get finished. That speaks to a culture within the industry that is very fan-oriented, that is very toxic to people who want to develop for these large-name companies with large-name licenses. Honestly, reading that, without further clarification, I don't know if I would really trust a job offer from Skybound personally, based off of that. And it's just very odd to really jump to the game being the most prescient issue whenever you have like close to 200 people getting thrown out on their ass because the higher ups didn't know how to manage the money right and couldn't convince investors to part with their funds. It's really frustrating to see that.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. And you take a look and you listen to this. And it's not as if this is the only studio ever to have an issue. But man, are they not the now poster child of having issues? From a article that you linked to us from Kotaku and Ethan Gatch, there was a interview, or excuse me, uh, doo -doo -doo -doo, where was that? There we go. Um, in a discussion that Emily Grace Buck was giving in regards to her experience at TellTale at the Sweden Game Conference, she basically went into that in the United States, your work is so closely tied to your healthcare and your ability to live that she's amazed that a union doesn't exist for anybody in the game development industry because there is such a high amount of turnover within the industry, and the moment that you lose your job, a lot of people glorify the idea of being a contractor, but a contractor has to remain self-insured, and being self-insured in America is exorbitantly
Oh,
pricey. It's
yes, that too. Sorry.
all right, and
I mean,
it's not as it's bad, but it only gets worse when you actually make the amount of money that a developer for a game like this would make. We're talking people who probably make $60,000 to $120,000, considering the type of studio and the type of game that they were working on. So, yeah,
yeah,
there's not going to be subsidized insurance on that.
no, and that actually speaks to another answer that Ian gave to a question on the AMA, where he basically said, no, it's just the nature of the business that people roll on and off of projects, whenever based on where they're at in their development cycle. That is true, and I'm sure what he's referring to is like in-house rolling off on and off of projects. As they move from team to team, you've done your work here. Now that you're done with Walking Dead, let's move over to Wolf Among Us, or let's move over to the Borderlands Telltale series, that sort of thing. I'm pretty sure that's what he's referring to, but without the clarification there, it's easy to see how that sort of comment can work against him when talking about the nature of the lack of worker protections within the game development field right now.
And I would love to hear more from somebody who, say, works game development in a different country where your job isn't so closely tied to your ability to fricking live. Because I imagine the rollover between different jobs is probably the same between multiple countries, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because, like, Rockstar famously, and I know I keep talking about them because I'm promise I'm not jumping ahead, but Rockstar famously headquartered in England, and they clearly show no qualms about forcing their employees to work not only these same conditions, especially crunch conditions that we have seen time and time again, but they do so in complete secrecy with a cloud of fear hanging over anyone who decides to speak out without the Hauser's approval. So at least it's not necessarily, I don't think it's a question of where you live. I think it's more so a question of how large of a company you work for and how much clout that company has, and also how much of a fan base that company has. It's the same thing we saw with the Guild Wars 2 situation a few months back, whenever they fired the narrative designer because she decided to defend herself on Twitter, and they sided with the shitty fans. It's just, unfortunately, it's the nature of a business that really thinks it has to sustain itself off of catering to fans when it doesn't need to if it only produces engaging experiences. And real quick, I just want to correct myself from earlier. Kent Muddle is a former TellTale employee, and he's the creative director on the final season of the Walking Dead game. So I just wanted to correct that.
Okay. You know, as the person outside of the United States, Lindsay, how do you feel on this sort of thing?
I don't know. I mean, I'm somebody who was looking to get into the industry, and as somebody who's out of the country, it's kind of frightening to see what's happening with various companies in the States. Um, and so, like, it almost makes me hesitant to want to get in because I'm seeing now how fluid of an industry it is and how like there's no guarantee that your job's going to be there tomorrow. And I mean, up here our health isn't so much tied to our jobs, but the fact that um, your living situation definitely is. Like, our rent prices, especially where I am, are some of the highest in the country. And going, yeah, cool, great, I've got this amazing job, and tomorrow here's your pink slip. Just no. Just no. I don't like this at all.
Yeah. Well, I would hope and assume that Canada would probably have better worker protections in place than, say, the U.S. federal government. Because I mean, really, the only repercussion that TellTale has is because of the California state government and their decision to strengthen worker protection.
But that's just it. We don't.
Hmm.
We can be let go pretty much at any time. I think what it's called in the States is an at will employment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have to be given some notice or severance in lieu of. But I mean, I've seen people let go for some of the most BS reasons possible. Um, so, like, even you can be there for a year and a half and they can just suddenly go, yeah, we don't feel you're a good fit. But here's your severance. Have fun.
Well, it is unfortunate. Gee.
Super just. It's good to know some things are cross border. Let's say. There are things that don't just apply to us. Oh, good. Great. So I don't have to worry that I'm just alone on these sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, very much not alone. And I mean, right now, with the way minimum wage has gone in my province, it's becoming harder and harder to find jobs because a lot of the smaller companies that you looked at closed.
Whew.
Um, so, because our minimum wage went this past January from, I think it was 11.25 an hour up to 14.
Hmm.
Um, Whereas, I mean, cost of living in my area is about 22 an hour. So it's still, minimum wage is still not a livable wage, but it was enough of a sticker shock to actually close a lot of small independent companies.
Wow.
Well, let's move on from one lovely topic to another, just to give ourselves a little room between this and the other major topic we're going to discuss today. Uh,
Compound the bummer.
how did you know that was the title of my next album, Compound the Bummer?
I mean, I'm working on it too, so I should know.
You should know. I should really keep you in the loop on these things. Anyway,
You should. Anyway.
so from Game Revolution, from writer Tom Power, the Division developer disputes political game tag and says that the Division should not be seen as an openly political game, and they're not interested in it because that doesn't sell, is basically what it seems like his point in this article boils down to. Let's see. It's a universe and world that we created for people to explore how to be a good person in a slowly decaying world, but people like to put politics into that, and we back away from those interpretations as much as we can because we don't want to take a stance in current politics.
Can I just talk directly to let me find his name again, Alf Condelius. There we go. Let me just speak real quick to Alf, man to man. If you don't want your game about a dystopian future where like Americans are fighting against other Americans because of a viral outbreak and all this other stuff, if you don't want to have to like argue that you shouldn't have a political stance about that, don't set your game in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, if ever like I saw a game that looked, at least from what I saw, like, hey, this looks pretty political, it's The Division, a game set in DC in a world that's falling the fuck apart.
Yeah. A world where they're struggling for the ideology of America in a world that is post this like outbreak that has wiped out a large swath of the population. Like when we were watching the E3 conference. Remember this? They debuted the trailer for this thing, right? And the first thing that we thought, without any explanation from any of the developers, was that this is going to be like this. This looks political. This looks like it is like trying to say something. Hopefully, they're trying to say something. But then, Condelius comes out here and says this, and just clips it clips any bite that this thing could have had at all.
And my favorite part of this whole article at the end, his response to it has to be subtle for a lot of people to be attracted to it. It has to be undefined for many people to put their own definition to it. It has to be vague in some aspects while it's in a very well defined world for people to be able to interact with it for a very long time. If we want people to play the game for hours and hours, then we cannot be very defined in what everything means. That would be boring. That would be like watching one of those educational movies from high school. So,
No, it wouldn't.
so you're telling me Metal Gear, you're telling me BioShock, like I didn't enjoy these games fucking clearly, right? That's what you're getting at?
I think what they're saying too, though, is that they're trying not to alienate any particular groups. So, like, if they took a very Republican stance on it, then you'd alienate your Democrat players and vice versa. So, they're trying to keep it more neutral, I think.
No, trust me, I get it, but no,
yeah,
go ahead, Brian.
I get that reasoning. I'm not dense enough to not see that. I mean, obviously, that's the main reason why you do this, is because you want to sell more copies of the game to all these people. You don't want to cultivate a culture of controversy around a game like this. You also don't want to be lumped in as quote-unquote SJW bullshit like BioShock and Metal Gear. I still can't believe anybody would call it Metal Gear SJW bullshit, considering how like gun horny that thing is. But honestly, what that last bit of from this article tells me is that this decision isn't because they don't want to alienate people. This decision is because the Division 2, much like the original The Division, is set up as a games as a service model. It is set up to live well beyond the lifetime of any narrative experience would. And to do that, it's kind of adverse to put a story in it. So they don't want to say anything with it because they just want to give people a playground to run around and do the shooties and steal all the looties. It's just another like Destiny with more realistic shooting because it has a the Tom Clancy franchise strapped to it. I don't know. The reasoning feels much more like a development move along with a business move, and I think into today's climate, you are going to lose maybe not as many people as you would if you took one side or the other, or if you even try to tell like a weaving story of like the battle for DC between these two or three different ideologies. I think that sitting here and saying that no, we don't want to be political, even though our game is literally in the most political city known to this country, that will push some people away from playing this game as well.
I just find the whole listen, if you want to sell a game and have no politics in it, that is fine. I could give less of a damn personally, right? It's you make the game you want to make. I'm not going to tell you that your vision has to include fucking anything in it. It's just a matter of this feels like something where you could have made a statement, and it could have been a statement literally any way. It could have been a statement that went completely against anything I could have given a damn about, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But it just sounds like you just want to make a shoot game.
Yeah, like honestly, you don't even have to like make a statement. Just give me a compelling story about the battle for the heart of the nation. That's like you want to put your game in DC. Give me that storyline. Give me something with some characters. Like the idea that spawned like the beginning of the Division, where like the whole like virus on the dollar bills during Black Friday, and that making it spread through New York so quickly that no one knew what could happen, and just cause all this chaos and nuclear winter and all this other bullshit. Like that's a very good starting point. You bumbled the story after that. Just give me something that has like something I can sink my teeth into. This is just milk toast. This is a like well done steak. This just does not draw me into it. I can only speak from my personal outlook. This thing, like what I was excited about, what I saw at E3, immediately washed away from their messaging around the game since then.
Like, I see definitely where you're coming from, because, I mean, games should make you want to care about what you're doing in the game. And from what I'm gathering, it's like they just took away all reasons to actually care. I'm just running around and shooting and looting, and that's it. Like, there's no reason why I'm doing this.
Yeah. And maybe they could find something compelling beyond that, but and I know you definitely can, but with the games as a service mentality into the game that they seem to be putting out, I'm not sure what that is or how they do it. It doesn't make me feel much better that it's an Ubisoft game, so I don't know what that's going to end up looking like. I don't have a whole lot of trust in Ubisoft these days.
No. After The Crew 2? Nope. Just
God, The Crew 2.
It's so weird because it was for so long Ubisoft was such a cool developer. I don't understand what happened. They used to be somebody. They used to be a contender, damn it.
I mean, I will say this, like those last two Assassin's Creed games were pretty okay. But yeah, Ubisoft, like they need to, I don't know. There's something needs to, like they need to get back on their 2017 kick.
They need to stop riding on their laurels and actually give us a game.
Yeah.
That would be nice. Just a little bit of work and dedication, and not falling back on open world run around stab thing, nothing interesting. You know.
At least there are no towers in this game, to my knowledge. Crossing fingers.
You know, I mean, after Breath of the Wild, I'm kind of okay again with towers, but you know, don't. I don't even know. I don't know. I'm trying to think numbers and words at the same time, and it's completely not working. Anyway. Let's move on to our next story. We're going to go into a whole chunk of shit. on Red Dead Redemption 2, which is coming out, I believe, tomorrow. Am I wrong on that?
No, it comes out on the 26th, which is my birthday.
Yeah, we're still about a week away, but you're going to be able to start preloading it tomorrow
Okay,
because
okay.
you need to preload. Have you seen how large of a file size this thing is?
I have heard 99 gigabytes for the initial game.
Jeez.
With a 50 gig download afterwards.
Oh my god. That's terrifying. Like I thought
Yeah.
the Fallout 77 stress test at like 46 gigs was bad.
Oh, it's
Or
certainly
76,
interesting.
sorry.
What really gets me is, despite all of the work that Rockstar has put into this, Call of Duty is making just fucking gangbuster money and is set to make way more money than this will ever make, and that confuses the hell out of me.
I don't know. I don't know if you can necessarily say that Black Ops 4 is going to make more money than Red Dead just yet. Because you got to remember, GTA 5 has made like $7 million on its own. So like, it might not be immediate, but I think Rockstar might have the long game on lock here.
And I mean, every franchise has its fanboys and girls. So, like, they don't care how bad the game is, but they're playing it. So, you never know.
Yeah, also fair. But our first story comes to us from GameIndustry.biz via Rebecca Valentine, and I've seen this reported in a few other places as well, so you're not going to be hard pressed to find this. An awful lot of smaller mom and pop game stores are not going to have a copy of Red Dead Redemption 2 on the first week, which is a huge fucking problem for these people because the first week is when you make all your money. So to
Yeah.
not be able to make money on the initial sales week, now on a level I can kind of get what's going on here because you want your prime people to get their hands on this first, and your major release people clearly take precedent, yada yada. And especially with digital sales being as large as it is today, there's a lot of things you could say, but really, this
Well,
is not good for much of anybody other than Walmart.
not at all. And I
And
mean, I was looking at that article, and there's the one family owned smaller store they've already spent a crap ton of money advertising this, and they've got like 200 plus pre orders.
yeah, I was just looking at that part of the article. Basically, a family-owned outlet in the northeastern U.S. described having promoted the game since its announcement with posters, displays, print ads, and even a $3,300 billboard. And they do currently have almost 200 pre-orders for the game, and they are not getting copies on release.
And they're thinking about just buying retail and selling them at a loss to meet the demand. Like, you shouldn't be doing that to your smaller retailers. Like,
Yeah.
they're going to be pushing it long after. I mean, everybody thought Blockbuster was going to last, and look what happened to them. So this is just really poor move.
It's funny you should mention Blockbuster because also in this article it says that the number one game rental service, GameFly, is not receiving copies upon release either. They don't. They said that they don't expect to ship PS4 discs for the game before Wednesday, November 7th, at the
I
earliest.
I can understand not giving your game to GameFly for 2 weeks, because wanting to push game sales, I that much I can totally understand and on a level almost even get behind. It's more to me that, and I think it kind of is telling of the age that we're in. when you sell a game, you're making maybe $5 off of that game, and that's just the resell after. You're not talking about shelf space or all that. Really, you're selling new games to get interest and get people in the store. For most of these people, this is kind of common for what we're looking at now. They don't really want the game industry has never wanted the resale market to exist. So cutting this is only good for their business. Digital sales are only good for their business, which is nice for them, but we haven't gotten to the point yet where there's only the digital market, and even when we have the digital market, people are still going to want to do something with their games that they're not playing.
I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
You're fine. There's just nothing to address that concern in the slightest.
You know, I will say this: like, we are not all the way to a digital market yet, but I think looking at Call of Duty's sales figures for the first week points to the fact that we are definitely closer than we ever have been. I think over in the UK, the figures for physical copies sold of Black Ops 4 was down by 50% compared to World War II last year. So there's clearly been a delineation of players moving towards digital purchases for major AAA games that used to I think we all remember like the environments of like the midnight release, hanging outside the GameStop with all the other like people that just really wanted to get their hands on Halo 2 first. Like I think we can all like remember that time and remember the fervor that it came with getting that box in your hand and just being able to say that you got it. Well, now like you don't need that anymore, and unfortunately that is the lifeblood of a lot of these smaller shops. So much so, and honestly, because of that fact, I think it's even more egregious what Rockstar is doing. Because like I get it, you want to get as many physical copies onto these large stores shelves as you can. But the fact that the majority of people are probably going to be buying this game digitally, that tells me that you honestly don't have a reason to withhold copies of this game from smaller retailers, especially if they've already dealt with you in a business transaction to get these copies. I think it's incredibly gross. And it's not even the grossest thing having to do with Rockstar right now, but it's still gross in terms of how they deal with video game sellers. At least the small scale ones, at least.
And maybe I'm just like old, but there's something to be said for going, what game am I going to play? Walking over to your shelf and picking the game off the shelf.
Yes.
Like I remember that back in the day of cartridge gaming and earlier console, like next gen consoles, and this just like it takes the fun out of it.
And I don't think you're abnormal in that. I know enough people who buy physical copies still of basically everything, regardless if you're talking DVDs, CDs, etc. The physical market is still fairly strong, especially amongst people who are actually interested in it in a more serious, tangible way. People who love movies are always going to buy the DVD. They like knowing that that DVD is there. Whereas your more average consumer, yes, probably just going to go download it.
Well, and there's something to be said to be talking to your friend and going, hey, man, I picked up this really great game and they don't have the cash to buy it right now. To be able to take it over to their place so they can play it. So it feels like it's killing the community of gaming to some extent.
Oh, certainly. And I mean, even for me, for instance, my roommates, they both have a Switch. but they can't play my Switch games unless I have a physical copy. Lucky me, I prefer to have physical copies. So, they can play my Breath of the Wild if they want to. They can play the Mario Party while they're on the go if they want to. That's all fine. And that works out well for all of us, basically. But anyway, we hit that one a bit hard on the head. So let's the next one. We kind of got a bit of a two-parter here. So if you follow Twitter very seriously, you've probably heard the 100-hour week statement from Rockstar Games down Hauser in regards to, oh yeah, we've been pulling 100-hour work weeks at the job, and that hasn't gone over well, surprisingly.
Yeah, no, it hasn't. Especially whenever like the nature of the statement was like wearing that we were working 100-hour weeks as like a badge of honor, as like a look at us, we're so committed to what we do that we're gonna do this much time and blah blah blah. And honestly, like Dan Houser's probably a busy guy. I don't think he's working 100-hour weeks on like the development of Red Dead myself. Um, and then I don't know, it made the rounds on Twitter. It made the rounds everywhere, and immediately there was a backlash.
Well, yeah,
Especially following all the TellTale rigmarole.
yeah, and I think you have to tie one into the other with this, right? Because I don't think this would have been as big of a deal if it wasn't for the whole Telltale fiasco that has been going on. So now we're ending up in a world where if you make a statement like this, it looks really bad on you because of that. And I've heard enough people, who know him that have defended his statement, and that's fine, to say, well, this is what I meant, and you just didn't understand my intention. And they've been doing some very, very serious PR now to get back into this, and he has allowed people who work at Rockstar to talk about their experience working at Rockstar.
Yeah, before we even get into anything that the employee said, can I just real quick, if you have to qualify your ability to speak publicly about your work and your job as being allowed to do so, immediate red flag. Like the reddest of the red.
Well, that can come down to the industry. Like, I can't speak publicly about what I do.
Hmm.
So, NDAs are a thing.
Oh no, NDAs definitely are, but I'm not saying like, divulging like, details that aren't necessarily that don't need to be discussed publicly or anything like that, or that shouldn't be discussed publicly. I'm saying like just the fact that Rockstar is such a secretive company that you literally hear no word from anyone on the record from that company and any time outside of the Hauser. Or I guess Lindsay Benzies when he was there before he got ousted. Um, I don't know. It's just so odd the way that they qualify it and the nature of that studio. It just all of it just feels real scummy in some ways.
It's a little. It doesn't. It's not a good look, is probably the best thing that I'm able to say on it. That he had to allow people to make statements. And we've definitely heard before about Rockstar. It's not the first time that there's been the commentary on it. The famous Rockstar spouse incident um, was only a few, like, it feels like it was forever ago, but really it was only a few years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, now they've allowed some people to make statements, and all of the statements have been oddly positive that have been reported. Um,
Oh, really? The statements that they were allowed to give have been oddly positive.
yeah, I
It's kind of like looking at job reviews, like reviews of companies, and you'll see like 100 negative reviews, and then you'll see one positive review, and you know that was put out by HR.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
have you seen the quote unquote people who work at Amazon who have like Amazon in their handle for their Twitter handle and will respond to Amazon articles about how they love their job and that they've never been treated badly?
Oh, you mean the people that are like paid to say that?
Yeah, it's such a weird, just weird thing. And some of these statements just don't read like things that people say about their employers. Uh, let's see. Can I find? I know I had an article here with some of the quotes from what they were saying in Twitter.
I've got it up. Um, yeah, like there's, I definitely see what you mean.
Can you read us one of those?
Yeah, I'm
Let's
just kind
pick
of
a good one.
Oh, you got one?
Okay.
Go for
Here
it.
we go. Zoe Sams, a tools programmer at Rockstar North. She's worked there for 3 years, but Red Dead 2 is her first professional release. Um, I wanted to clear some things up from a personal point of view. I can't speak for everyone. I'm not a representative for Rockstar, and I know things can vary per department and per studio. I haven't worked a 100-hour week in my life. I'm thanked for any overtime I'm asked to do, and it feels like in those circumstances, it was truly an unfortunate situation. I adore my team, this crazy family, and the work we put out. I like to think that they know I do too with the work I put in for them. I don't think that we're perfect, but I don't think anywhere is, and we're all working to change that internally. That sounds like a PR release. Like it really does.
Yeah, it's one thing to say nice things about your company. Like, if you ask me how do I feel about my job, I'm probably going to say something along the lines of, my company actually does some really nice things for me. It allows me to work from home. It allows me to be a little bit more flexible about my hours. There's certainly very positive things about the company that I work for. But when you say it along the lines of the way it was said in the tweets that have been shared, it really sounds like you're covering something more than you're actually talking about it.
And I'm sorry, I've never worked for a company that said thank you when you work overtime.
Yeah, same here.
I actually my company does thank me when I work overtime, but they thank me in a
Oh.
free company jacket.
uh, don't mind if I read a couple more real quick because there are a couple here that I need to unpack, and I
Yeah,
would really love to
please.
see what y'all think. So, Rockstar North senior audio designer Sarah Scott speaking. The games industry is a tough industry. Many developers know it, and there's an ongoing wider discussion on how we change and improve. But for me personally, the pressure I feel and the extra hours I work are because of the high bar that I set for myself because I want to make my work the best it can be. I could go home earlier and still hit my deadlines, but I wouldn't be happy with the quality of my work and I wouldn't feel fulfilled. I'm just going to go and put this out here right now. I've seen other people say this, and it rings true. People who work in this industry with this attitude about crunch and overtime and feel like in order to reach a level of fulfillment, they have to work, 50, 60, 70-hour work weeks on the reg. That is also a negative for the labor movement in the game development field, because these people that own these companies know that they can find people like this that they can exploit.
Exactly. And I mean, when you're working hours like that, you can't tell me you're putting out your best possible work. You're sleep deprived, you're burnt out, and you're not going to put out as quality of a product. Like, I've worked jobs where I had 2 days off in a month, and by the end of that month, I hated life. I hated everybody. I didn't want to. I just would have happily walked away, but didn't, because paycheck.
Yeah.
They actually put out what their hours are basically across the board. That they average between 42.4 and 45 hours per week, and the work week length peaked in mid-July, with the average week was 50.1 hours, with 20% of employees working 60 hours or more, up to 67.1 hours.
That's still too much.
That is a lot of people working over 60 hours if 20% of your employees are working 67 hours a week.
Yeah, on like regularly, not even like granted, like it's regularly for like a specific part of the year, but it's still a regular number, and it's a number that they threw out there saying like, look, this proves that we aren't wrong, like we aren't the bad guy, because they only work 67 hours a week during this time period. We only crunch them for like close to 70 hours a week as opposed to the 100 that we bragged about.
Well, and when you've got some former PR people, Joe Stouffer, I think that's how his name is said. He said on Twitter, "I can assure you that during the GTA 4 era, it was like working with a gun to your head 7 days a week." Like, somebody's not being fully truthful here, and it just, the damage control is real.
Yeah, I mean, like the fact that like in the article, like what you're referring to from Stauffer, like the immediate next sentence, Rockstar then informed its current employees that they were permitted to weigh in on the subject on Twitter. Like the fact that excuse me,
Happens.
Don't
the
die.
fact that that's the I'm good. The fact that that's the following statement after Stauffer talks about like literally feeling so pressured to continue working on a GTA game that it felt like it had a gun to his head. Like, there's no other way that I feel you can take this other than like Rockstar performing damage control a week before like their most anticipated game of probably the last decade, I would say, comes out.
Yeah, and the fact that all of the posts that are coming out for Twitter from the employees that have been permitted to weigh in on it, it's all been in the studio's defense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I haven't seen anything negative come out of them. Have you?
There is one statement from Rockstar North Online Tools designer Tom Fautley. It's the closest to a negative statement that I've seen. And it's not necessarily full-on negative. It's just there is some criticism in it. His tweet read, "We do crunch. I've not seen anybody forced to work 100-hour weeks, but I've definitely seen friends get closer to that figure than is healthy. I am asked, encouraged, and expected to work overtime, both nights and weekends, when coming up to a big deadline. The most I've ever worked in a single week during my nearly 5 years here has been 79 hours, but that was not recently." He also added that during crunch periods, it's more common for him to work 45 to 50 hours per week, though he has said some coworkers surpass that number significantly. As someone with health issues linked to stress and anxiety, it's not always great. I do and still enjoy my work, and I'm happy enough working here, but I think it should be better.
Yeah, that's way closer to a real statement than what I've seen so far. And, for that much, I definitely appreciate that
Yeah.
somebody is at least being, at the very least, somewhat on the level here. And I can imagine that there are a lot of employees at Rockstar that legitimately do enjoy their work weeks, that do enjoy the extended hours. But for those people who do have problems, having an environment like that makes them fear speaking out and saying that this is a problem, because
Yeah.
they feel like, oh, well, I'm just not a company person then, and they'll look down on me for not being a company person.
Yeah, not to mention like the fear of job security whenever you have all these other people around you pulling like these long work weeks and you're not doing it. Well, who's going to be the one that stands out?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And
And
like
Rockstar
we've,
has made no bones about being ruthless about cutting people.
yeah, and we've seen that time and time again with the industry in general is this is what's become expected, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not.
Um, anyway, moving on from that angle of it, it's kind of interesting. There's a Vulture article, and we're not going to get into the full depth of this article. It's a fairly long one, but it really goes into depth on the history of Rockstar Games itself. And Rockstar itself kind of came out of a whole lot of nothing, to build what is one of the most massively popular studios. Like, even Rockstar's less enthusiastic games are big giant fucking hits. Dan himself started working with Take Two on You Don't Know Jack, back in the day.
Hey,
Hey,
callback.
it all comes together. And this company has such a weird history especially when you read about it. Between all of the litigation that it's had, between the hot coffee mod, the various, there's been multiple celebrities that have sued Rockstar.
Yeah.
There's so much to the history here, and I would love to go over it. But mostly, I just want to say this article from Vulture, uh, from Harold Goldberg. Holy crap! Just read it if you get a chance.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot about the history of the company in there, but also like the 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 his ability to treat that company that has been so like divisive, I think, and has been so like bad boyish, for lack of a better term, within the video games industry. Like the way he treats the company with kid gloves in that thing, doesn't really push back on things, especially in the current climate of discussions about labor rights and other issues within game development. I think it speaks to like a, a problematic approach in some ways, personally.
I mean,
But it's still worth a read.
while I think you're not wrong that it's a very glowing history of Rockstar. It certainly is leaving off a whole lot of the blemishes for the company, but at the same time, I think there definitely is a place for an article along these lines that is nothing but, a glowing, positive, history of the company. Just because Rockstar is such a there's a lot of people who really don't know that this company literally came from absolute nothing. They were making like the games they used to make were all right, but they certainly weren't massive fucking hits. I remember when Grand Theft Auto 2 came out, it's like, what are you talking about? You're playing a game where you're driving around shooting people. That doesn't sound fun. And now it's the most massive franchise. Grand Theft Auto 5 has made more money than any media property to have ever existed.
Yeah.
That
I mean,
is
I'm not
a statement.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, it definitely is. It definitely is. Like, I'm not sitting here like saying that they don't have anything to celebrate, but any like substantial profile of that company really needs to highlight both the extreme positives and the negatives of it. Personally, like, you have to have a holistic viewpoint of Rockstar to really understand who Rockstar is. So I don't know. It was frustrating to read at points, but still, like, it was still an interesting read.
Yeah, and like I said, I entirely agree with you on that. That they're skipping over the parts that definitely are a problem about its history. Even the parts that are blemishes that it mentions, it talks about fairly nicely.
Yeah, just quickly moves off of those. Like, this thing happened, but also Bully came out.
Hey, Barack Obama, remember that guy? What a fucking card he
Ooh.
was.
Ignore all the financial disputes with the voice actor for Nico in Grand Theft Auto 4. Like, we made the Ballad of Gay Tony.
It's the situation of pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Exactly. It's okay to get wide-eyed at Oz, but understand who's actually controlling it.
You're not wrong. Man, I still have, even through all this, I personally still have a lot of love for Rockstar. I really do. Even with all this overtime, even with the treatment of the actor for Nico Bella, I still like them a lot. They're still one of my favorite developers, even through all that. I don't know if that speaks to
I don't know. Like,
me
they
or.
definitely produce like outstanding games. Like, I'm not denying that fact.
Mhm.
It's just some of the obviously when we've been over and over. It's like some of the practices are just definitely rub me the wrong way.
No.
It's the same way whenever I watch the NFL. Like, I know what's happening to their brains, but yet I really want to watch the 49ers. It's frustrating as hell. I feel super guilty. But yet I have 16 fantasy football teams. What does that say about me as a person? So, it's that balance.
Though, I mean, honestly, I still like them as a company. I still think they do more good than harm within the industry. Um, and I know it's a weird statement to make after bashing them for their overtime amounts, but I have seen enough of how they treat their developers in house. From public statements, from reviews, and actual articles, unlike the previous one that actually bit a bit harder. Um, the game industry is fucking bullshit. And a lot of developers, people don't see the pain a lot of these developers go to make these things. And for everything that we've said about Rockstar, that from 60-hour work weeks and things along those lines, those are not good, and those are practices that really we need to have a union for developers. The same way that they unionized for voice acting within video games. The people that make the code behind the game really need that same sort of attention too. Because, yeah, while some people are perfectly happy to work 60-hour work weeks, I'm one of them. Anyone that knows me will be like, yeah, I'm just going to go back to work for a little while. Why? I have some things I need to get done.
You
I can
also
be a
have
little
some of the
sensitive.
most, sorry, you also have some of the most erratic working hours I've ever seen.
Not wrong.
Yeah, I'm totally not after the stream going to make a phone call to somebody and then actually do some database management work myself.
Sounds like an afternoon.
Yeah, it's but and so maybe that's a me thing. That maybe I see some of myself in this and maybe more than I should.
I mean, there's nothing wrong in taking pride in your work.
Hmm.
There's nothing wrong in being so passionate about something that you want to work that long on it. Where it gets into murky territories whenever you commit yourself to doing that on a regular basis in an industry that can be exploitative of that labor. And then whenever you do reach the point of burnout, because you keep up that pace, it's inevitable. You're going to hit that. I think um, whenever you do hit that point, you won't necessarily know how to handle it in a lot of ways or in healthy ways. And because of that, um, the consistency of your work patterns will falter.
Hmm.
I think that if you don't address it up front while doing it or while feeling that way, you are setting yourself up for a shorter lifespan, or at least the need to take a probably elongated break from whatever you're doing.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
from what I've seen, the people at Rockstar get a fairly decent amount of like vacation time, so they're in some ways compensated for these weird hours.
Well, I certainly hope they're getting paid for overtime.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know.
yeah, of course they're getting, overtime pay on top of everything else. But, the additional vacation hours, things along those lines, those are. It's weird. Those are all nice bonuses to have.
Yeah.
But it doesn't, like I said before, it doesn't excuse it at the end of the day. And it's not a problem with just Rockstar, it's really a problem with almost all game developers that I could point to have this same issue and that's why when I finished college this is an industry I could have gone into, but fuck that. uh, while I do work erratic hours fairly commonly, I don't work 80 hours in a week ever. And fuck that, I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
But it's hitting a hammer too hard. uh, moving on to our last bit of stuff from Rockstar, despite how well the numbers already for Red Dead Redemption 2 are great. Already with the pre-sales, and obviously they're going to continue with the games as a service model from Grand Theft Auto Online. Which brings us to uh, assets have been frozen and home searched from the people who developed the cheat engine for Grand Theft Auto Online. We definitely live in a different world now with games as a service to what you can and cannot do legally with a game since it's a living environment.
Yeah, this whole situation, like, honestly, I don't know if this would have gotten as litigious as it did if not for one of the more popular things that you can do with the infamous GTA 5 cheat engine that these five men are being investigated for their connections to. Basically, like, the mod does everything from, like, letting you like fly around in the game world. You can like fully modify all the environments, both online and offline, with it. But you can also generate the virtual currency at will with it, and that virtual currency costs real money. And Rockstar is not all about giving away free real money. So
And this is one of those things, I'm entirely on Rockstar side on this point. You know, people put real money behind this shit for a reason. And I know plenty of people who play Grand Theft Auto Online and have never put a fucking dime into it. I mean,
yeah,
other than their initial purchase. So, I, I, it's similar to me and my love for Dragalia for no good reason. I love this game mostly because it's every other game is asking for all of this money, and then Grand Theft Auto Online is no, you can play it. Just if you give us more money, you have really fancy shit, but you certainly don't need it.
yeah. I think like the more telling part of this is that the Australian federal court was the one that issued the order to freeze all of their assets, including their cryptocurrency holdings, um, as well as issue search warrants for their homes and computers.
I didn't know you could freeze cryptocurrency assets.
Apparently so.
Holy shit.
If they can find it, if they can penetrate the blockchain, there you go. So yeah, no, I'm with you on this. This is like Rockstar, like while we can sit here and debate whether or not like Epic suing Fortnite cheaters claiming copyright infringement because they're rewriting code and whatnot, that's a whole different argument where that's much more nebulous, I think, and much more worth discussion. Whenever you are producing content that costs real life money, no matter what you feel about the business model that GTA Online operates under, whenever it involves basically theft, like it's theft.
Yeah.
And like doing this, like, yeah, you deserve to at least be investigated and stand trial for such things if you're found to be connected to it.
I just love this whole article from Game Revolution. Just the whole thing as it goes through, this tool was taken down in March. So this has been a slow walk off the game plague for these guys.
Yeah.
So they're living their worst life.
Oh yeah, and there's not a mistake. Like the service was like available for purchase for real money as well. Like you could buy a lifetime membership to the infamous cheat engine for $40, I believe. $40 got you a lifetime membership.
Mm.
At least until Rockstar decided to rear its head and be like, get that shit out of here.
Yeah, and $40 to save the hundreds and hundreds of dollars that you're getting for free out of this thing. It's a nice deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still find it a little funny that like this was shut down in March. The lawsuit wasn't filed until last month. Like what did they do all summer?
They made a video game.
I mean, they have been making a video game. We spent like half an hour. But yeah, no.
You still have like your legal department. Like they're not developing the game. So
I mean,
their legal department are the ones that actually were working the 100-hour work weeks. It wasn't the writers. That's
Oh, look at you with the jokes. With the jokes and stuff.
we have fun here
honestly
at
don't-
Mr. Video Games.
Exactly. Like, I honestly don't know what they were doing, but since the locations that they searched were in Melbourne, Australia, like maybe like it took them a little bit of time to track down exactly who was behind everything in order to get the search warrants and the asset freeze put in place.
Maybe.
very possibly.
So, moving from a fun topic to our last topic and the least fun topic on the list today. We have from
Yay.
Game Revolution. Oh, okay. So the co-creator of CS:GO, Jess Cliff, is going to go to jail because he apparently had relations with a 16-year-old girl that he hired from a website called SeekingArrangement.com. Woo!
Yeah, it's not a good look.
Gross.
Yeah, to say the least, good luck. So I've been following this story since his initial arrest back in January, and I've been writing about it here and there whenever as it developed, and then this came across my desk, and this is just real gross. So basically, he met up with this 16-year-old girl on 3 separate occasions, giving her $300 for 1 hour of sexual service. They did connect through that website, which has a reputation for being one that kind of cultivates sugar daddy / sugar mama style relationships. Not only did he pay her for sex, and she is underage, he also recorded the last time that they had sex without her consent. So basically, once this whole thing started, whenever Seattle Child Protection Services referred the victim to the Seattle Police Department, she was able to describe the location where he would pick her up. Like she led them on the route that he would take to his house. Identified his photo in a lineup. They went and talked to Cliff after being able to to track him down through call and text logs, through his subscriber information on SeekingArrangement.com, and he confirmed enough of the details in the communications between the two that they felt comfortable charging him back in January. He was initially denied bail, but was released on February 2nd after posting a $150,000 bail, I want to say. During his interrogation, he told detectives that she appeared to be 23 years old and didn't know that she was underage. He also admitted to using multiple other dating websites with the same sugar daddy style setup as SeekingArrangement.com in that interview. And then, of course, last week in King County Superior Court, he pled guilty to all charges of sexual exploitation of a minor. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much open and shut. Like he's going to jail for a long time, more than likely. A date for his sentencing hearing has not been set yet. But also, Cliff still worked for Valve when this all went down. And while Valve suspended him throughout the duration of the investigation, and I haven't seen an update saying that he's been released from the company, so I'm going to assume that he is still under suspension from Valve. Valve has not stated anything publicly about the situation or Cliff specifically, other than to confirm that he was suspended since this whole thing went down. They've been radio silent for 8 months on this whole Jess Cliff thing.
You would think they would have something to say of, and I know Valve is a company that really takes their statements seriously. But man, this is one of those things where it's open and shut. Yeah, this guy's a fucking weirdo. We got rid of his shit.
Yeah, I mean, his resume with Valve is impressive, but honestly, just no, he should not be associated with them in any way, shape, or form anymore. And this is just wrong. This actually sickens me to see and to read about, and no.
Yeah, just knowing that this is a thing that this happens. Just, man. Woo!
Yeah. Yeah, it's just all around nasty. Like, it's not something that I've been happy to cover, but, you know, God, it's just, I'm just glad that he is going to be going to prison and that he did not skate by based off of either his reputation within the development community or his association with a large corporate entity like Valve. I'm just glad that he was able to be prosecuted and will be serving punishment for this so insanely despicable act. Ah.
Yeah, this is fucking weird.
Yeah.
Uh, and the fact that it sounds like he just thought he could get away with it, that'd be fine. That is fine.
Well, I mean, you think about it, like, the dude has been basically celebrated by the most celebrated PC developer of video game history, I would say, honestly, when you look at the entire overview of it. Like, do you think that you don't, like, piss excellence? Or that do you think that you wouldn't think that you piss excellence whenever that's all you've been treated like since you built a mod that was turned into this global giant of a video game like Counter-Strike?
Yeah, I mean, CSGO is one of the biggest games out there. And yeah, this guy is. I'm just glad he's no longer with Valve. I wish Valve would do fucking anything lately.
Well, that's the thing. We don't
Incidents.
know. We don't know. Like, he's still, to my knowledge, still suspended. He might still be technically an employee of Valve as we speak. I would hope that he's not, but there hasn't been any public confirmation. So hopefully we'll see soon. Cross some fingers that they'll have the gall to actually come out and say, yo, no, yeah, we fired the pedophile. I don't think it's that hard to come out and say, yeah, we fired the pedophile.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like we're asking for much here, Valve. Just say he doesn't work for us anymore and he has nothing to do with our company. That's all we want, but this fucking bullshit that Valve has pulled of late of, we're above talking about things, we're above reviewing things, everything is on the table.
Yeah. Transparency goes a long way.
Woo!
Anyways.
Yes.
We've been like the bad news show today. Really bad.
I mean, it's been a week. It's been
I'm going to say, like, going into this, I didn't really have any good topics to talk about. Like, I looked at everything that we're going to talk about that was to talk about. I was like, I can't find anything interesting. And then Brian just gives me a flood of all these articles, and I'm just, holy shit.
I mean, it's my job, dude. Like,
I'm aware this is what you do for your living arrangement.
Yeah.
But still, damn. Fucking kudos to you. Also, goddamn you for that last one, but fucking kudos.
Hey, like, I put out the stuff that needs to be known. People need to know Chestnut is a big old leg gross man who does not deserve to be known as anything other than gross man. So.
You're not wrong.
Anyway.
Yeah. So, that officially ends Mr. Video Game. But
yes.
We do, as always, have our official Mr. Video Game of the Week. It is a person, place, or thing, basically, that summarizes the current video game market. whether that is for good or for bad. And this week's Mr. Video Game is Ubisoft. Whew, okay.
Who is it? It cut out on me there.
Oh, that is Ubisoft.
Ooh! Ubisoft.
Yeah, because they put out a game recently called Starlink. You know, here it's a good game, decent game we got going on here. If you can play it, because most of the copies of Starlink that came out, from my understanding, of a certain bundle of Starlink, I should say, came out with no game. This isn't the case of a digital download, it's just no fucking game.
Yeah. So it looks like the issue is like specific to Best Buy, I think.
Yeah.
Basically, like, and there were a number of posts on Reset Era and Reddit and across social media. Basically, people that bought the the launch package of Starlink Battle for Atlas from Best Buy, and they received everything except for a copy of the game.
So maybe we have a dual honor this week. It's Ubisoft and Best Buy.
I mean, I'd be down for it. I mean,
I'm
Best Buy does enough to annoy me at times.
Best Buy is annoying, but they were given a package and they had to believe the package contained something. Best Buy didn't fuck this up. Ubisoft is the one that fucked it up.
Well, here's the thing. Honestly, it's hard to tell who fucked it up because, like, apparently people that ordered this from Best Buy and received it, they received an already open or not taped shut box. So there's a chance that Best Buy, like, somewhere along, like, the shipping end of this thing, somebody just decided to creep on in there and swipe that game out and just send all the toy stuff along with it, not realizing that the toy stuff is kind of a key part of the game.
Somehow I didn't notice that part here.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. The plot thickens. Like they're like the Best Buy warehouses might be where you'll find all of these missing editions or these missing copies of Starlink.
The plot thickens. What the flying fuck?
Yeah.
Oh, Ubisoft.
Like Ubisoft actually issued a statement. We are currently investigating the scope of this issue and potential solutions. In the meantime, if anyone's been affected by this issue, please tell them to contact Ubisoft customer service, and they will provide assistance.
Yeah, okay. As somebody who's had experience with Ubi's customer assistance, good luck. We purchased a copy of The Crew 2 via digital download, played it for less than 2 hours, and tried to return it. We were informed that, unfortunately, digital downloads are non-refundable.
Ooh.
$90 Canadian for a game that was played for less than 2 hours, because it was that bad.
Did you buy it through, like, Steam, or...
Let me check.
Because Steam should allow you to return it.
It was bought directly through Ubi.
Oh, through the Uplay store?
Yep.
Yeah, that's... Well, that's incredibly frustrating. I had not really been up to date on their return policy, but to know that they have more archaic return policies than even Steam does...
That is special, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, the upside of this is because Starlink needed to technically be a physical game purchase, you might have a better shot. Might.
Yeah.
But, good luck.
One can hope. I mean, there's definitely something fishy going on here. Somewhere in transit, there's somebody with, like, 25 copies of Starlink not knowing what to do.
I have this feeling
With all
it's
these
going to
costs.
turn into this endless cycle of, well, no, you bought it from Best Buy, so talk to Best Buy. Well, no, it's Ubi's problem, so talk to Ubi.
Oh God.
And it's just going to
Ooh.
be like the ask your mother, ask your father all over again from our childhood.
Oh, I really hope it doesn't turn out that way, but knowing like the realistic nature of these things, yeah, I think you're right on the button there, Linz.
You
So
probably are, and that fucking sucks.
if anybody out there is going through this right now, let us know. I'm curious. I
Mhm.
need to know. Like, what are they doing to help?
Please, and thank you.
Yeah, like
So we
hit
actually
me up
have.
at one.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, hit me up at Wonderboy OTM if you have been experiencing these things. I want to know more.
I love that you're still using that name for your old podcast that no longer airs.
Hey, it fits, and who knows? It might not be an old podcast anymore at some point.
Oh? Is there
That's for
anything in
later.
the work? Okay, okay.
That's for later. Not talking. I'm being a rock star right now. Not talking. I'll let you know when I'm allowed to say something.
Fair enough. And this week we have not one, but two honorees for our title of Mr. Video Games. We just really they're interesting, but just not really want to talk about it in depth. So the Stanley Parable has now officially been out long enough that the last achievement that you could get for not playing the game for 5 years is now achievable. So if all those people out there waiting for that to get your platinums, good job, everybody. We
I
did it.
love I love this story. It's so perfectly dumb yet encapsulates the minds behind the Stanley Parable.
Is the Stanley Parable is one of my favorite games of all time. That and The Beginner's Guide, I have nothing but love for. Just absolute heart-stopping love for those games. Um, and if you haven't played both, just go and do it. If not for yourself, then for me. Don't you love me? Aren't we friends?
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean they're both
BRB,
like
gonna go
fairly
download.
cheap on Steam too. So I think Beginner's Guide is like $2.99, and Stanley Parable is like what $9.99. So like not a huge hit to the wallet for some quality weirdness, but with some very large amounts of heart in there too.
Something like that. The other runner-up that we wanted to discuss briefly is Star Citizen, that has raised
Oh
yet another
God,
$1 million for a game
God,
that doesn't exist yet after 5 years of development.
the game that doesn't exist that never dies.
You know, I have never met anybody who has put any money into this, and it's not like I don't talk to a lot of gamers. Who are these people who have put this amount of
I
money?
I haven't either.
Yet
This
again, hit us
game,
up.
this game is fairly, I can't say near and dear to my heart, but it is one I've heard much cursing about from my boyfriend. Um,
Oh wait, did he put money towards it?
no, he didn't.
Okay,
He did
good.
try playing it and waited eagerly for updates, but every single update was like, hey, we have a new ship. Here's how much it's going to cost you. Remortgage your house.
Ugh.
You know, like, and there was the stability in it is terrible. The trying to get on the same server with your friends. Don't even try. It's rough. Like, I don't know what they're doing. They're not addressing the main issues. So why are people putting money into this still?
One of the ships that they put out recently is $300 for a ship that you still cannot fly yet.
Yep, sounds like Star Citizen.
And then there's also the $700 version of the same ship.
God. Ugh.
And this is real money. Like, why? Why? I don't understand.
This is one of those, who are these people?
Gross people. Gross people. Like, this thing has reached like $200 million in crowdfunding, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
Like,
it's raised
just,
over 200 million in total so far.
yeah, just ludicrous numbers for something that has not delivered anything like substantially like engrossing at all, and like has changed its business plan and its development plan countless times in that same time period. Like, and it's just, it's one of those things that is so quick to lose faith in, and then they just keep doing more to make you like. Now we have like this face. What is it? FWAP, the facial recognition technology that they're adding into it now. It's like whenever 3D Realms was making Duke Nukem Forever. As soon as something brand new, some new tech came out, it had to be in that game, and it took them 15 years to realize that was a stupid way to build a video game, and it still came out shitty. So, like, who the fuck knows what's gonna happen to Star Citizen? But it's a joke now. I mean, if it was already a joke. It's even more of a joke now. It's just so ridiculous.
From me to you, Cloud Imperium, stop. Just stop.
Yeah.
Refund everybody. Just pull this. Stop.
Well,
or just pick one game to make. You're trying to make 5 different games.
this has certainly gone longer than we had intended to, but we're glad for the people that showed up today despite all of the technical difficulties. And next week, I'm sure Joan will be back with us to do our last video of the month. We will, of course, be off for the week of Halloween, but Wednesday, join us for The Missing. That's going to be interesting and gross, and I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be real fun.
And, of course, Mr. Video Game Show next week. You can find us at youtube.com/cbgbgame or on twitch.tv/Deadsun Entertainment. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night.
Night.
Bye.